This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. You can find all the cards in this video in their store by using the links in the description below. Hi everyone, I'm Nitsa Hone, and it's Saturday. That means it's time for Nitsa Notes, my weekly vlog series about limited magic. We're still in the early days of Murders at Karlov Manor, but we do have enough data now for it to be meaningful, and I like to use that data and my early impressions about the format about 20 drafts in to take a look back at my set review and see where I was wrong, and that's what we'll be doing in this video. I'll be talking about 10 cards I was wrong about. So let's get started with Murder. So, in the set review I said, last time we saw Murder, it didn't fare that well. It was okay, but it was nothing special. But I'm just going to assume it's going to be a little bit better here. Well, I was wrong. It's not a terrible card. It has a 54.4% win rate on 17 lands, which I should mention, 17lands.com is a place where you can go. They'll track your limited data if you sign up. And even if you don't sign up, you have access to all the data from the thousands and thousands of players who are signed up, and you can look at that data and think about what it means for the limited format. I use it a lot here on the channel once we're sort of, deep enough in the format for the data to be meaningful, and we've reached that point now, because it's interesting to look at and talk about what that data means, even though, data alone doesn't tell you everything about a card, of course. And one thing to keep in mind is that the win rate of people over on 17 lands is higher than the general win rate in Magic, which would of course be 50%. Right now, the overall win rate over on 17 lands is actually 55.6%. So a card that has a full percentage point win rate lower than that average win rate is not a great card. It's not completely terrible either, but there are some problems for Murder in this format. The biggest one is just disguise creatures. Any removal that costs more than like 2 is kind of problematic. I mean, it's not all bad, but it's not great because it's very hard to efficiently kill face-down disguise creatures when they have Ward 2. So, Shock has performed really well, which isn't surprising. Paying 3 to kill a morph means you're breaking even on mana, right? Well, with Murder, you have to pay 5 to kill a face-down creature, and if you wait to kill that face-down creature, it gets turned face-up, and it probably did something already. You can, sometimes it happens where your opponent turns a thing face-up, and you have time to kill it before it does something, but if it has a turns face-up trigger or any of that other stuff, you're falling way behind on value. Now, Murder still can kill, all the bombs in the format, basically. I think in the long run, its win rate will probably go up, but it is less good in this format than normal because it's so bad against disguise creatures, which are a pretty big part of this format. There's tons and tons of them at common and uncommon, and most of them have fared fairly well. Additionally, the double black thing does really matter. Especially if you're in green in this format, you're often splashing, and you can splash, other 3 mana removal like this format's Oblivion Ring, which gains you 2 life, stuff like that. But you can't splash Murder because it's double black. So it's hard to fit it into all decks as easily as some other removal spells, and it's just so inefficient against disguise creatures that it has a win rate a full percentage point lower than the average win rate on 17 lands. On a similar note, there's also Suspicious Detonation, which has the same basic problem. I gave this, I think, a C+ in the set review, and I said, I don't think you want more than 1 copy of this because it's kind of clunky. I thought the clue upside, if you've drawn 2 cards, it costs 2 mana. I thought that would be enough to make it worthwhile, but it hasn't proven to be. It has a win rate of 51.4%, which is pretty miserable. That basically means you shouldn't be playing this card. And that is saying something. Because it's a removal spell, right? Obviously, if it always costs 5 to do 4, it wouldn't surprise me if the win rate was 51.4%. That's a horrible rate. But first of all, setting it up so it costs 2 is a real cost. So this has really not fared especially well. And red is one of the better colors in the format, so the fact that it has this bad of a win rate is especially bad. I should say with Murder, black has a really low win rate overall in the format, and as far as black goes, Murder's kind of okay. So its win rate, it's probably more like an average card, like a C-level card. Whereas Suspicious Detonation is like, you shouldn't be playing it at all. All right, so that's 2 cards I overrated. Let's move now to one I underrated, and Loxodon Eavesdropper. So I gave this a C in the set review. I thought it would be fine, and it's been better than that. And I probably should have known, 4 mana, 3/3, make a clue. That's already a pretty good card. And, these are things I said in the set review, but oftentimes, what I say about a card in a set review matters more than the grade, but the grade I give it still is sort of a reflection of like how much weight I think these things matter. And obviously the fact that this is a 4-mana 3/3 that makes a clue isn't something I weighed appropriately. And then, green isn't heavy into clues. That's another reason why I wasn't like super pumped about this. But there are enough of them, and if you're paired with blue or red, you're going to have more of them. And these eavesdroppers also get really good in multiples. If you can crack one clue and make 2 of them into 4/4 vigilances in the same turn, like, that's pretty good. And that happens a lot. This is a common. You can get like 3 of them, and I don't hate the idea of playing like 3 of them. Even if they are hill giants at the base, they do give you a card eventually, and then they have this upside where, a 4/4 vigilance can attack on almost any board, at least reasonably effectively, can offer to trade with something. And, on top of that, because it doesn't have to swing, well, it does swing, but it doesn't have to turn sideways, it can still protect you. So it can really help you in races. And the win rate on this thing is 57.5%. That makes it, more or less a C+, B- level common. A common that you always want in green, a key common in green even. And I didn't even have this on my like top green commons. So should have been. I just don't think it's the best green common, but it's probably second best. And it's performed really, really well. Similarly, there is red herring. So I gave this a C- in the set review. It reminds me of Valley Dasher, and that wasn't good company to keep. That was, I guess we've actually seen it again recently, huh? Because we had Tarkir remastered. But yeah, it's 1 generic and a red 2/2 haste, has to attack. And that card's like, not great. It's pretty good if you can play it on turn 2. That is a nice thing to have around. But later in the game, it's really not very good. And I did acknowledge in the set review the fact that you can sack this because it's a clue does make up for that some. It makes it so that you don't just have to jam it into your opponent's stuff and, hope somehow it survives. But there's a few things going on in this format that make it better. One of them is that every color has a good common combat trick. So, combat tricks work great with this because your opponent, normally if you attack with a 2/2 and you have mana up, your opponent's like, okay, well, they have to attack with it, so they're just doing it because they have to. I'm going to block. and that's what they'll think with red herring. But if you're attacking with a 2/2 that doesn't have to attack, they're going to say, well, they have a trick. I'm not going to block. Red herring kind of puts them in a spot where they're like, do they have a trick? I don't know. And in this format, you kind of should expect your opponent to have them because there are such good ones. The green +3/+3 trample one, probably the scariest of them all. But there's the 1 green +1/+1 for each creature you have. There's 2 generic and a red, +3/+0, first strike, and a clue. Like, there's all of these good tricks around in the format. And so red herring works well with those, first of all. Second of all, like I mentioned, the fact that you can sack it for a card does mean it kind of has this fail case where, you played in your second main phase on a turn. Maybe you're just planning on chumping and sacrificing it. Or maybe you're going to crack it, at the end of your opponent's turn. In that fail case, if that's all this card was, it'd be awful. But it has the upside of being really good on turn 2, being really good with tricks, being really good in aggro decks, being good with all the red-white battalion stuff since it can come down and give you that battalion out of nowhere. Like, it's just really well positioned in the format. It's an artifact, which blue-red cares about. So this is like way better than Valley Dasher in a format that has lots of good tricks, in a format that has synergy that works well with it. And so it has a 56.5% win rate, which is at least a C, I would think. That's at least how it's fared, and I gave it a C- in the set review. I thought it'd be a card you cut pretty often, but you don't really. I mean, red-white especially, you play this, it's in an aggressive deck. It's good in blue-red because it's a clue and an artifact. Like, it just keeps going from there. So it's really overperformed overall. Let's talk now about something I talked about last week, but now we have the data to really back up what I was saying. And one of the things I said last week is, unfortunately, all of these black-green deck build-arounds that are supposed to be, for collect evidence, Rot Farm, Mortipede, Chalk Outline, and Insidious Roots, I didn't think any of them were working, a few days into the format, and the data backs that up. The Mortipede's at 50.7%, Chalk Outline at 48.5%, Insidious Roots at 49.1%. So I really wanted these to work. I really enjoy build-arounds like these that can get you back ahead from behind. I thought, maybe the Mortipede's ability to gain you life, and then the fact that Chalk Outline and Insidious Roots actually add to the board, unlike some payoffs, I thought that would be enough to get you back ahead from behind and pay you off for playing cards that are subpar when you're not doing the thing that they want you to do. But as I said last week, there's, these cards are too slow for the format, first of all. Second of all, the fact that they restricted it only to creatures leaving your graveyard is brutal. I think they probably still wouldn't be good enough, but they would be better if it was just non-lands leaving your graveyard that triggers these. And, that would make these more viable. But the fact that, the problem is with all of these is, first, you need a loaded graveyard. Second of all, the things in your graveyard need to be creatures. And third of all, you need this build-around effect. And then you need ways to remove things from your graveyard. So you just need way too much to line up in a format where if your opponent's curving out, you're not in good shape, and that's always true. I do have good news on the front of all the formats being fast, by the way. Mark Rosewater did say on Blogatog recently that they are aware that formats have been too fast lately. So hopefully that's going to change soon. But this was a format where I was hoping we wouldn't be there. But the format is fast enough. It's not blistering fast. It's not the fastest format ever. But it's still fast enough that you can't afford to play a 4-mana 3/4 or a Chalk Outliner and Insidious Roots, which don't even add to the board. All of these have been bad. Graveyard decks work in the format to some extent, and Collect Evidence works, but it's more like a feature in your deck instead of like the main thing you have going on in your deck. So these have just been complete duds, and that's disappointing. I said I was skeptical of them in the set review, and I sort of gave them aspirational grades, but my aspirations were wrong. So, those, not good. Let's move now to a card that has been really good, and that is a Killer Among Us. So I gave this a C in the set review, which, means I think you play it most of the time when you have it, but it's not going to be that good. And I said in the set review, one of the great things about it is, you get 3 bodies. Maybe you don't get them efficiently, but you do get 3 bodies, and it's pretty hard to lose when you make 3 bodies, even if you just have to chump with all of them. And so that gave it this sort of fail case. And then it has the upside, of course, of in the end, you pay 5 mana for 2/1/1s and a 4/4 with Death Touch, which is a great deal. So this card has been really, really good. It has a win rate of 61%, which is like B+. Like, that's how good this has been. It has performed incredibly well. One thing I will note, I've seen a lot of players make mistakes with this card. The big one being that your creature does have to be attacking, and it does have to be a token. You can't name a creature type like you have another goblin around. I've seen people try to sack it to that. Doesn't work. It has to be a goblin token, and it has to be attacking. And one really feel-bad thing that this does on Arena is you can sack this whenever you want, but if you don't have a target, it just goes to your graveyard. So that's part of the problem with the card. It'd probably have a higher win rate if it weren't for some percentage of people messing it up. So maybe it's even better than a B+. But so make sure you're using it correctly. But, sending in those 3 tokens on the next turn is an absolute beating. And, even if your opponent guesses correctly, you're going to trade with something and then still have 2 tokens around in a lot of cases. And if they guess incorrectly, it's an absolute beating. So it just gives you a ton of value. It's a strong 5-mana card that does what 5-mana cards need to do, adds significantly to the board while also letting you pressure your opponent. So it's good in all situations. I want to look at another collective group of cards, that being all of the Cluequipments. All of these have been duds. I think Wrench has the highest win rate at like 53%. But white's a really strong color, so that's worse than it sounds. And the average win rate for these is 51.1%. I thought these would kind of work out. It's interesting Red Herring did and these didn't, because these look kind of better on paper, at least to me they did. Because, none of them are great equipment, but they're not terrible, and you can sack them all to replace themselves. But it just turns out, like most equipment in Limited these days, spending mana on these and not really adding to the board without having something else going on is just too much of a liability. The fact that they're artifacts and the fact that they're clues, it comes up in certain decks like blue-red. If you're only playing like these in blue-red, I bet the win rate's higher. This is the kind of thing data doesn't tell us. But you should not be playing these in basically any other deck. There's just not really a reason to. They're just too inefficient and too clunky. They don't add to the board enough. Next, let's look at Case of the Gorgon's Kiss. So this one's interesting because when it was first revealed, I think I had it as like a D. I didn't like it very much. But the more I thought about it, and the longer it took before, you know, I started the set review, it just kept going up in my estimation. And this was because I was looking at it and I was like, okay, so you pay 1 mana, and sure, the Enter the Battlefield effect, you know, doesn't always do something, right? But it does a decent chunk of the time, and you can manufacture, so I thought, situations where it's not that hard to have had 3 things die, because if you run your creature into theirs, then play Case of the Gorgon's Kiss to kill theirs, that's already 2, right? And I just thought, if in the end you can activate this, you can get this going like half the time, and it can kill something too, like, that's going to feel pretty good, because you pay so little mana. You know, I was sort of looking at it, you know, in the past it's been easy to underevaluate sagas, like when we first saw them, because you don't pay very much, but they take a while to get going. But most of the time when we've seen sagas, most of them are good and limited, because you pay very little mana and you get a lot in the end. The difference is sagas are automatic, right? They're going to do the thing they're going to do. This isn't. So it has the problems I initially thought it had, and in fact, it's more like an F with a 48.8% win rate. You shouldn't be playing it at all. This is because it's a blank card too often, and making it so you actually solve this is much harder than I expected. Even in the initial stage when I thought it was a D or whatever, it's even harder than I thought it would be to turn this into a 4/4. And so this case has been really bad, just isn't one you should be playing. All right, next let's look at the card that I think is maybe the most embarrassing that I got wrong, because it's so obviously bad, and that is Kylock. So I gave him a C+, which isn't a great grade, but it's way better than he is, because he's an F with a 45.4% win rate. And all the things I said, if you go back and watch the set review, are true. I didn't say anything in it like, you know, it's gonna be really easy to make this work. I said, it's going to be kind of hard to make him work, because you have to give stuff up on board, and then you have to have cards in your deck, instants and sorceries with the right mana value, etc., etc. Like, you have to hit the right cards when you sack things on board, and doing that is often not a good thing. So everything I said I think is true, but then somehow I came out of that evaluation giving him a C+. I mean, I think the thing I like the most about him is that the combination of haste, menace, and ward meant that getting 2 swings in with this is pretty likely. And I think I sort of got seduced by that. I sort of thought, you know, if I can swing with this twice and hit some stuff in my deck twice, like, that's some serious value. But first of all, it's 7 mana. So, you know, you've got to get to that much mana before it does anything. And then second of all, you have to have a built-out board. And like I said in the set review, you need that built-out board coupled with spells in your deck of the right mana value. And that's just too much. And this card has just been a complete F. You know, I don't know how I came out of everything I said with the card, exactly how I decided to give it a C+. I mean, I just explained how I got there, but I should have known that the 2 attacks, sure, he can do it, but, like, you're giving up way too much, and sometimes you're just going to whiff. So he's just been terrible in Limited. And then the last card that we're looking at here is Archdruid's Charm. So this one, I don't think I was wildly wrong. I gave it a C+ in the set review, but I also said, you know, you're not going to be able to play it in a lot of green decks because you're going to need so many green sources. And there's some truth to that. But it has an overall win rate of 58.6%, which to me indicates you can pretty much play it in any green deck. And one thing that's really nice is that green as a base color in this format is a pretty common spot to end up. Like, you end up with 11 or 12 forests a lot of the time. Or green sources, I should say, not necessarily forests. And that makes Archdruid's Charm a lot more playable. And the reason you end up there is there's a bunch of good common fixing in green. For example, the 2 mana 2/2 that's a disguised creature you turn up for 1 green, and then you grab a land. Like, you know, if you're base green, running those really helps you find the lands that you need in your other colors. And there's more than that too. You know, it doesn't hurt that there's a 2 mana 1/1 that can tap for green, giving you another green source that happens to be a creature. So casting Archdruid's Charm is better than I expected, and it's good pretty much all game long too. Like, one of the things I didn't love about it in the set review is I felt like you kind of needed the mana early for it to be great. And sure, that is when it's better. When you can consistently cast the thing early, it is better. But even by the later stages of the game, it's still pretty good. I mean, The 3-mana fight effect, which isn't even a fight effect, it's just, you know, does damage equal to its power. Like, that's a great removal spell. And that's what I said. In the set review, I said, if this is easy to cast, I'd give it like a B+. And while it's not so easy that it is a B+, it is easy enough that it's probably like a B, and is a card you can take with the first pick, even as mana intensive as it is. So it's been a great card. You know, all the different modes have the right spot, and I've loved the card overall. So those are 10 plus cards that I got wrong, since I sort of talked about collectively the leaves your graveyard commons and uncommons and the clue equipment. So we talked about more than 10 cards, a couple of cycles too, I guess. But those are the ones that I feel like I'm the most egregiously wrong about so far in the format. So that does it for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like it and share it so that others can enjoy it too. If you want to catch future videos, don't forget to subscribe. If you want to catch up on past videos, including drafts of this format, you should see some playlists on your screen shortly. Thanks for watching.